All right, let's just dive right in. I want you to picture this scene. You've spent the whole season looking after what you were promised was the absolute best, most canker-resistant parsnip out there, the gladiator. You finally go to pull them up, dreaming of these perfect, creamy white roots, and what do you get? This ugly, black, completely unusable rot. I mean, it is one of the most soul-crushing moments in gardening for sure. And it just leaves you standing there, staring at this mess, asking that one huge question: why? You literally pick that variety to avoid this exact problem. So what in the world went wrong? Well, that is precisely the mystery we are going to solve right now. And you know what? That frustration is 100% valid. You did the research, you prepped the soil perfectly, and you still ended up with a crop you can't even eat. It really feels like the plant itself, the very genetics you paid for, just flat out failed you. But as you're about to see, the real answer is, well, it's a little more complex and honestly a lot more interesting. So, welcome to what I'm calling the canker conundrum. It's time to put on our detective hats because we are going to get to the bottom of this gardening mystery. Okay, first things first. Every good investigation starts by lining up the usual suspects. And when it comes to parsnip canker, there are really four main culprits we need to take a close look at. Suspect number one is the fungus itself. Now, you have to understand, this soil-borne fungus is a real opportunist. It isn't some aggressive supervillain out to get your parsnips. No, it just hangs around in the soil, waiting for an invitation. A tiny little crack or wound is all it needs to sneak in and start causing all kinds of trouble. Next in the lineup, let's talk about the scene of the crime, the soil conditions. Heavy clay soil that gets compacted, or even worse, stays waterlogged for days, that is an absolute nightmare for a parsnip root. It puts the plant under constant stress, basically suffocating it and weakening all its natural defenses, making it a super easy target. And then we have suspect number three, good old physical damage. Think about it. A sharp stone hiding in the soil, getting a little too close with the hoe while you're weeding, or even the root forking deep underground. Any one of those things can create a physical wound. And a wound, as we now know, is basically an open door with a welcome mat for that lurking fungus. And finally, our last suspect. And this one, well, this is often the ringleader of the whole operation. Weather stress. We're talking about that classic brutal 1-2 punch of a long, hot, dry spell followed by a sudden, massive downpour of rain. That combination is absolutely devastating for a parsnip skin. So we've seen our lineup of suspects, but here's the twist. In the specific case of a top-tier resistant variety like Gladiator failing so spectacularly, well, it was almost never just one of these culprits acting alone. Oh no, it was a conspiracy. And this, right here, this reframes the whole problem. We were so quick to blame the plant's genetics, but the truth is, Gladiator genuinely has fantastic resistance. The real culprit was a perfect storm of terrible conditions. That weather stress we talked about, it was so extreme that it just completely overwhelmed the plant's built-in defenses. The genetics were solid, but the environment was just too hostile to handle. So let me walk you through exactly how that perfect storm went down. First, that long dry spell slows down growth and makes the parsnip skin tough and hard. Then, bam, the heavy rain arrives. The root tries to soak up all that water and swell up really fast. But that hardened skin, it can't stretch, so it splits, creating thousands of microscopic cracks you can't even see. And that is the moment the fungus has been waiting for. It slips right into those cracks and the canker begins. Okay, enough doom and gloom. We've diagnosed the problem, we've cracked the case. So now for the most important part, the solution. And I've got great news. There is one incredibly simple, incredibly effective technique that's going to be your absolute best defense, especially if you're gardening on heavy clay soil where this problem is at its worst. The number one fix, and it almost sounds too easy, is to create shallow ridges. I know, it seems too simple. But I promise you, this one little change completely alters the environment right around the parsnip root, and it short-circuits that entire canker cascade before it can even start. And hey, don't worry, we are not talking about building giant raised beds here. It's much simpler. In late winter, just loosen the top 8 to 10 inches of your soil. Then use a rake to pull that loose soil up into low, wide ridges. We're only talking about 4 to 6 inches high. That's it. Then you just sow your seeds right along the top. So why is this little trick so powerful? Well, by lifting the shoulders of the parsnip just a few inches above the surrounding ground, all that excess water from a downpour just drains away. This keeps oxygen flowing to the root crown, it prevents waterlogging, and it encourages smoother, straighter growth with way less risk of that cracking that lets the canker in. It's an absolute game changer. So ridges are your new secret weapon. But if you want to go from a good harvest to a perfect one, let's talk about a couple of pro-level tips to really fine-tune your technique for next year. Okay, here's a question I get a lot. Many of us pre-germinate our parsnip seeds on a bit of damp paper towel to get them going. It's a great trick. But it begs the question, in a crazy weather year, could that good practice have actually made the canker problem worse? And the answer is, well, it's a little complicated. It's a maybe. On one hand, pre-germination gives you faster, more reliable sprouting. That's awesome. But here's the hidden downside on heavy clay. That super fast-growing little taproot can hit hard, dry soil and get checked. Its growth just slams to a halt. This stresses the root tip early on, making it way more likely to split later when the rains finally show up. So listen, the key here isn't to stop pre-germinating. Not at all. It's about tweaking the technique. 2 tiny changes make all the difference. First, give the little trench, the drill, a really good soak with water before you put the seeds in. And second, plant them when that little white root tip is just 1 to 3 millimeters long. Seriously, no longer. This gives them a nice moist start without having a long, fragile root that can get damaged. And here's another pro-level tip. Don't put all your parsnips in one basket. Even with a champion like Gladiator, it is so smart to spread your risk. Try planting a row of Albion next to it. It's fantastic on heavy soils and even less likely to split. Or maybe Javelin F1, which grows shorter, stumpier roots that are just less likely to run into trouble deep down. All right, that was a lot to take in. We've investigated the crime, we've identified the culprit, and we've laid out the master prevention plan. So let's pull all of that together into your definitive action plan for next season. Here it is, your ultimate canker-free checklist. The absolute foundation is preparing those shallow ridges. Make sure you sow early into cool, moist soil and always stick with proven resistant varieties. If you're going to pre-germinate, keep that sprout tip super short and water the drill first. And during dry spells, water deeply, but not too often, to stop that skin from hardening up. And of course, don't forget the basics. No fresh manure, and keep up a good 3 to 4 year crop rotation. You follow this and you'll be golden. You know, if all of that is just too much to remember, just burn this one little mantra into your brain. When it comes to parsnips on heavy soil, drainage beats feeding. Even moisture beats rich soil. That is the secret. It really is that simple. So, as you start dreaming about next year's garden, I want you to ask yourself this one simple question. What is the one change you're going to make? Maybe it's those simple shallow ridges that will guarantee you have your best, cleanest, most delicious parsnip harvest ever.